Maya stood in the aisle of the airplane, holding her first-class ticket. The flight attendant, a woman with tight blonde hair and a pinched smile, looked at the ticket and then back at Maya. "Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake. This ticket says first class," the attendant said, her voice loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Yes, that's correct," Maya replied calmly. She adjusted the strap of her simple canvas bag on her shoulder. After running her company for 10 years, she had learned to stay calm in uncomfortable situations. The attendant shook her head. "But this is the first-class section." She looked Maya up and down, taking in her comfortable jeans, plain white t-shirt and scuffed sneakers. "First class is for, well, it's usually for business people and executives. You look a bit too ordinary for this section." Maya took a deep breath. This wasn't the first time someone had judged her by her appearance, and it probably wouldn't be the last. "I understand your confusion, but my ticket is for first class, seat 2A. The attendant's face hardened. "I need to see some ID, please." Her tone suggested she expected to catch Maya in a lie. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out her driver's license. The attendant studied it closely, looking back and forth between the photo and Maya's face. "This still doesn't seem right," the attendant muttered. She raised her hand and called to another crew member. "Mark, can you come here? We have a situation." By now, several passengers were watching. Some looked uncomfortable, others curious. Maya felt her cheeks grow warm, but she kept her expression neutral. A male flight attendant named Mark hurried over. "What's the problem, Susan?" Susan lowered her voice, but not enough. "This woman claims she has a first-class ticket, but I think there must be a mistake." Before Mark could respond, a man sitting in the first row turned around. He was in his 60s with silver hair and wearing an expensive suit. His eyes widened when he saw Maya. "Excuse me," he said, standing up, "but are you Maya Johnson?" Maya nodded, recognizing him as Gerald Thompson, one of her company's board members. "Hello, Gerald. Nice to see you again." Gerald stepped into the aisle. "Susan, do you know who this woman is?" The attendant frowned. "No, should I?" Gerald smiled broadly. "This is Maya Johnson. She's the CEO of Skyline Enterprises, which, in case you weren't aware, is the parent company that owns this airline." A heavy silence fell over the first-class cabin. Susan's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Mark," gasped. "Miss Johnson, I am so sorry for the confusion." The news rippled through the cabin like a shockwave. Passengers who had been pretending not to watch were now openly staring. A woman in seat 3C whispered to her companion. A businessman quickly closed his laptop and straightened his tie. Susan's hands began to shake. "Miss Johnson, I had no idea. I'm terribly sorry. Please, let me show you to your seat right away." Maya looked at the attendant, noting the fear in her eyes. She could demand this woman's job. She could call the airline president right now. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what the powerful CEO would do to the attendant who had humiliated her. But Maya remembered being 22 at her first corporate job when a senior executive had publicly shamed her for a small mistake. She remembered how it felt to be powerless and afraid. "It's all right," Maya said, her voice gentle but firm. "No harm done. I would like to take my seat now, though. It's been a long day." Susan, still trembling, led Maya to seat 2A. "Can I get you anything? Water? Champagne? A blanket?" "Water would be fine, thank you," Maya said, settling into the wide leather seat. As Susan hurried away, Gerald leaned across the aisle. "You should report her, Maya. That was completely unacceptable." Maya shook her head. "We all make mistakes, Gerald. The real test is what we learn from them." When Susan returned with the water, her hands were still shaking so badly that some of it spilled on the tray table. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, quickly wiping it up. "About everything. I never meant to—" "Susan," Maya interrupted gently, "after we take off and things calm down, I'd like to talk with you and your supervisor, not to get you in trouble," she added, seeing the panic in the woman's eyes. "But because I think we might be able to learn something from each other." Susan nodded, relief washing over her face. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you." As the plane prepared for takeoff, Maya looked out the window, thinking about how often she'd been underestimated in her life. From the college counselor who suggested she try something easier than business school, to the investors who wouldn't meet with her until she brought a white male colleague to the meeting. Each time, she had two choices: get angry or get determined. She always chose determination. The plane began to move down the runway. Maya felt the familiar push back against her seat as they accelerated. No matter how many times she flew, she never got tired of this moment, when the wheels left the ground and suddenly you were flying. After the plane reached cruising altitude, Maya took a moment to gather her thoughts. The flight attendant, Susan, had been avoiding eye contact since takeoff, rushing past Maya's seat whenever possible. When the seatbelt sign turned off, Maya pressed the call button. Susan appeared quickly, her face tense. "Yes, Ms. Johnson, how can I help you?" "I was wondering if we could have that conversation now," Maya said. "Is there somewhere private we can talk, and please ask your supervisor to join us?" Susan nodded nervously. "Of course, I'll speak with the lead flight attendant." 10 minutes. Later, Maya sat in a small crew area at the back of the plane. Susan stood with her hands clasped tightly together. Next to her was an older woman named Patricia, the lead flight attendant. "Please, both of you, sit down," Maya said, gesturing to the seats across from her. Patricia spoke first. "Ms. Johnson, on behalf of the entire crew and airline, I want to apologize for the incident earlier." Maya held up her hand. "That's not why I asked to speak with you. Susan made a mistake. We all make mistakes." Susan looked up, surprised. Her eyes were red from crying. "I want to tell you a story," Maya continued. "When I was 25, I started my first company. It was a small tech startup, but I believed in it. One day I had a meeting with potential investors. I arrived early and sat in the waiting room. The receptionist asked if I was there to apply for the secretary position." Patricia winced. "That wasn't the first time something like that happened, and it wasn't the last," Maya said. "Once I was presenting at a conference. Someone asked me to get them coffee, thinking I was part of the catering staff. Another time, I was told I didn't look like a CEO during a business meeting." Susan's shoulders relaxed slightly as she listened. "When I was 32, I had enough success to buy my first luxury car. I went to the dealership in jeans and a t-shirt, similar to what I'm wearing now. The salespeople ignored me for nearly an hour. When someone finally approached me, they suggested I look at the used car section because the new models were quite expensive." Maya paused, noticing both women were fully engaged in her story. "What happened today wasn't new to me, but it still stings every single time. People see me and make assumptions. They don't see the woman who worked 18-hour days building a company. They don't see the MBA from Harvard. They don't see the patents I hold. They just see," she gestured to herself, "someone ordinary who doesn't belong in first class." "I'm so sorry," Susan whispered. "I know you are," Maya said, "but here's why I wanted to talk. 5 years ago, when my company acquired this airline, I made a promise to myself. I would build a company where people are valued for who they are, not how they look or what they wear." Maya leaned forward. "The culture I'm trying to create is one where we look deeper than surface judgments, where we give people the benefit of the doubt." Patricia nodded thoughtfully. "That's a wonderful philosophy. But how do you make it real? In day-to-day operations? It starts with moments like this," Maya said. "When mistakes happen, we learn from them instead of punishing people. And believe me, I've made plenty of mistakes myself." Susan looked up. "You're not going to ask for me to be fired?" Maya shook her head. "No, what would that solve? Instead, I'd like to hear your perspective. What went through your mind when you saw me trying to board first class?" Susan hesitated before answering. I had a certain picture in my head of what our first-class passengers look like. Usually suits, expensive watches, designer, luggage. When I saw you in casual clothes with a simple bag, it didn't match that picture." "Exactly," Maya said. "We all have these pictures in our heads. These shortcuts our brains take. The challenge is recognizing when they're leading us astray." The three women talked for nearly half an hour. Maya shared more stories from her journey. Patricia discussed challenges in training staff to provide equal service to all passengers. Susan admitted that she had never thought deeply about her own assumptions before. As they prepared to return to their duties, Maya made a suggestion. "What if we created a training program based on real experiences like this? Not to shame anyone, but to help people see how these small moments feel from the other side? Patricia's eyes lit up. That could be powerful. Much better than the generic videos we currently use. I'd be willing to share my experience, Susan said quietly, if it would help others learn. Maya smiled. That takes courage, Susan. Thank you. As Maya walked back to her seat, she felt lighter. The incident that could have ruined her day had turned into something meaningful. She had learned long ago that success wasn't about avoiding obstacles, but transforming them into opportunities. She settled back into her leather seat, looking forward to the conference ahead. Her keynote speech was about innovative leadership. Now she had a fresh example to share. 3 months after the flight incident, Maya sat in her office looking over the final draft of the company's new training program. What had started as a single uncomfortable moment had grown into something much bigger. She smiled as she turned the pages, seeing how her team had transformed her idea into reality. The phone on her desk rang. "Miss Johnson, Susan Williams is here to see you. Please send her in," Maya replied. Susan walked into the office looking very different from the nervous flight attendant Maya had met. She stood taller now, more confident. She still wore her airline uniform, but with a new pin on her lapel that read Diversity Champion. "The final materials look great," Maya said, gesturing to the training booklet. "Are you ready for next week's launch?" Susan nodded as she took a seat. "I think so, but I'm still nervous about sharing my story with the whole company." "That's understandable," Maya said. "It takes courage to admit mistakes." When Maya had returned from her business trip 3 months ago, she couldn't stop thinking about her conversation with Susan. The next day, she had called a meeting with her executive team. She told them about the incident and proposed a new, company-wide initiative on unconscious bias training. "We need something real," she had told them. "Not just another corporate program that people sit through and forget. We need stories that touch hearts and change minds." To everyone's surprise, Maya had invited Susan to join the team developing the program. At first, Susan had been terrified. She worried that working with the CEO she had insulted would be awkward or that others would resent her. But Maya had insisted. "Your perspective is valuable," Maya had told her. "You can help people understand both sides of the story." Over the following months, Susan had worked closely with Maya and the training team. She shared her honest thoughts about what had gone through her mind that day on the plane. She talked about the pictures she had in her head about what successful people looked like. She admitted how embarrassed she felt when she realized her mistake. "The hardest part was admitting to myself that I had these biases," Susan said now, looking at the training materials. "I always thought I treated everyone equally." Maya nodded. "Most people do. That's why we call them unconscious biases. We don't even know we have them." The training program they created was unlike anything the company had done before. Instead of dry lectures about diversity, it focused on real stories from employees at all levels. Susan's story was featured prominently, along with Maya's perspective on the same incident. "Have you seen the registration numbers?" Maya asked. "We had to add 4 extra sessions because so many people signed up." Susan smiled. "I heard. Patricia told me that the flight crews are actually excited about attending. That never happens with training." The program had grown beyond what either of them had imagined. It now included interactive exercises, where employees could safely explore their own biases. There were discussion groups where people could share their experiences, and there was a mentoring program that paired people from different backgrounds. "I never thought my biggest mistake would turn into my proudest achievement," Susan said. "That's the beauty of transformation," Maya replied. "When we're open to learning, our worst moments can become our best teachers." As they walked together to the conference room where they would present the program to the executive team, Susan stopped in the hallway. "I need to thank you," she said. "Most CEOs would have had me fired that day. You could have ruined my career with one phone call." Maya shook her head. "That's not the kind of leader I want to be, or the kind of company I want to build." The presentation was a success. The executives were impressed by the program's depth and authenticity. One by one, they shared their own stories of times they had been judged unfairly or had judged others. Later, that day, as Susan prepared to leave, she noticed a new email in her inbox. It was a company-wide announcement about a new position, Director of Inclusion Training. The job description mentioned leading the unconscious bias program and developing new initiatives. Susan read it twice, wondering if she should apply. It would be a big change from her job as a flight attendant. Before she could decide, another email arrived. This one was from Maya. "I hope you'll consider applying," it read. "Your journey from that day on the plane to today has been remarkable. That's exactly the kind of transformation we want to inspire in others." Susan felt tears in her eyes as she typed her reply. "Thank you for seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself." 6 months after their first uncomfortable meeting, Susan stood on stage at the company's annual conference. Behind her was a giant screen showing the new training program's title, Beyond First Impressions, Seeing the Person, Not the Package. She looked out at hundreds of employees and began, "My story starts with a mistake I made when I judged someone based on how they looked." Maya stood at the edge of the stage, her heart beating with a mix of pride and humility. The spotlight warmed her face as the audience erupted into applause. A year had passed since the airline's pivotal moment, and today, Maya was being honored with a prestigious leadership award for her efforts in fostering inclusion. The memories of that day were still vivid. She had boarded a flight in casual clothes, only to be judged by her appearance. The humiliation she felt had burned deeply, but she used it as fuel for change. That moment had sparked a transformation, not just within herself, but across the entire organization. She gestured to the crowd for quiet and took a deep breath before speaking. Her voice was steady but carried the weight of her journey. "This award is not just for me. It's for every person who has been misjudged, overlooked, or underestimated. It's for everyone who believes in the power of second chances." The audience leaned in, captivated by her words. Maya turned to a figure waiting in the wings. She smiled and waved the former flight attendant forward. The young woman hesitated, then stepped onto the stage, her face a mix of nerves and gratitude. "Many of you know about the incident that led to our airline's changes," Maya continued. "This woman was brave enough to confront her mistake and turn it into a lesson. Together, we've worked to ensure that what happened to me will never happen to anyone else." The flight attendant took the microphone, her voice soft but sincere. "When I realized how my actions had hurt Maya, I felt ashamed. But instead of shutting me out, she invited me to be part of the solution. That moment taught me more than any training ever could." The audience clapped, moved by the heartfelt exchange. Maya and the flight attendant embraced briefly, their shared journey evident in their smiles. After the ceremony, Maya found herself reflecting on the past year. Implementing change had been no small task. She had worked closely with the airlines, leadership to develop new training programs focused on empathy and understanding. They revamped their hiring process to actively seek out candidates from diverse backgrounds. The changes were slow at first, but soon the results spoke for themselves. Employee satisfaction soared, and the airline became known for its inclusive culture. Maya's thoughts were interrupted as she prepared to board a flight back home. She wore the same casual clothes as she had a year ago, but this time her heart felt lighter. As she approached the boarding gate, the crew greeted her warmly, their smiles genuine. They had no idea who she was. They didn't need to. To them, she was just another passenger, deserving of respect and kindness. On board, Maya settled into her seat, watching as the crew attended to passengers with care. A little girl nearby tugged on her mother's sleeve, asking why everyone seemed so happy. Maya smiled at the innocence of the question, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. As the plane took off, she gazed out the window at the clouds below. A single moment of prejudice had led to something far greater than she could have imagined. It had sparked conversations, inspired growth, and created opportunities for countless others. Maya closed her eyes, letting the hum of the engines lull her into a peaceful state. She knew the journey wasn't over. There was always more work to be done, but for now she allowed herself to bask in the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had made a difference.